Rinaz, how many levels have you done?
1.
There's a lot more ahead.
Look, just making people simply watch the demo,
Well, in 2024, that is disrespectful.
Pilot Studio should definitely pay me royalties for that billion ad views I generated.
Sasha is bragging that he has a 14 Pro.
No guys, this company pays me so little that I don't have a 16 Pro, just a 14.
My front wheels just fell off. At that moment, I was like, oh, this game is definitely cool. I'm going to play it.
Hey friends, we're just watching the second part of Racing Crash since the analysis turned out to be long. It's quite interesting, and there are many moments worth paying attention to. First of all, I'd like to ask you not to forget to please subscribe, like, and ask questions in the comments. Your questions are very important to us. We'll try to answer all of them. Enjoy watching.
Hey everyone, welcome to the second part of analysis. We've indeed had a small change in our team. A game designer has joined us, who acted as a level designer for this project. And Oleg said that this game, though it's not for kids, isn't for kids, it was made by our team. And for that, we have a separate account specifically on Google Play. So we released it under a separate developer, which we call Red Pilot Studio.
Traditionally, Rinaz, as you know, please go ahead, try to tell us what nuances there are with FTUE, UI, and UX. Could you elaborate in detail? Or do you by any chance have a different plan today?
So, look, I just entered the game. And my very first initial impression is that I will have to carefully manage and control. I'll have 4 buttons: gas, brake, and steering the car. Why is it like this for me? Because before this, I played the game Earn to Die a bit. In this game, Earn to Die, well, the most popular zombie game, and I thought it would be the same in your game. And it's a bit unusual because here you simply don't control the angle, you just press the gas. That's just the first thing, and the second. And look.
So you mean to say that we're in fact obliged some other, perhaps more popular game to that, let's say, perhaps satisfy the wishes, the audience game, or some of their expectations?
I would do it just like in the most popular game. Why not do it like them?
If it works, with a good competitor, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Did I get your point right?
Yes.
But, sorry, by that logic, everyone should do it. Homescapes.
We're all going to Homescapes. Certainly, most likely anyone who comes into this game has played Earn to Die before, that popular game.
I don't know. No. Look, I agree with you. I also used to love those VK games, those little motorcycles, right? They're like 15 years old. But here's a question about it. Preference of the target audience.
And it's kind of an interesting idea, of course, but doing it like there in the current realities won't work. Here, if you keep playing, you'll realize that it would be inappropriate here because everything happens much faster and you won't have time to lean or dodge in that sense. Well, I mean, here, in general, the game visually, maybe in some sense, and by its atmosphere, it somewhat resembles and has some references there visually and maybe even, but in terms of gameplay, it is very significantly different.
Then watch. I recorded this video for the second time, meaning I played, and then to record it, I reset the data, so everything was from the beginning, and I kind of already know how to play. But even despite that, right here on the first level, you have. First of all, when you press intro in the tutorial, it only starts working after a few seconds. I would make it so that it shows you the tutorial immediately. You press it, and it works right away.
Nitro, not intro.
Nitro, well, indeed, the letters are the same.
Second, you press the gas, and, well, this happened to me more than once. It just doesn't move forward and you lose. Do you perhaps have some kind of funnel that tracks how many people go from the start of the first level to the end? Or how many stay?
We do, but unfortunately our metrics have ceased functioning, so since November 24th we have nothing at all. We already made the payment, but they somehow don't see our money, so we're sorting it out. So in general, yes, there is. But I can't say specifically for this version because this FTUE, it only more or less took shape in this version that you're playing.
Plus, another thing I didn't like is that with Nitro, if you hold it down, I'm holding it down. It either doesn't work. Look, well, this white button shows that I'm pressing it, or it doesn't work, and then also, like, oh, you have to press it a few more times in order for it to get properly functioning as expected. I can't hold it down for it to just keep going until it runs out.
Okay, can't now. Say if it's a bug or it's supposed to be like that, I'm recording everything you're saying, including...
I have questions about the Nitro. It's completely unclear. I pressed it, and I didn't understand if it was working or what was happening. I pressed it several times. So, when they show me the hint to press it for the first time, I just, pressed it, the hint ended, and I moved on. Well, something like that. I still don't exactly understand if I need to hold it or just press it, or what. So it started, but I still didn't get it.
Now let us consider the second thing. Why exactly do we need this particular slider that directs and controls our weapon? Is it something that will be used or required in the upcoming next levels? Something up there, or... Well, if we always have something perhaps in front of us, then this slider seems unnecessary.
Rinaz, how many levels you completed?
1.
There are bots further on. Well, those drones...
There's a lot more ahead.
Okay. Well, I would definitely try to make the car turn with these arrows, and gently add gas with the brake. But then there will be too many buttons. And make the gun aim automatically, in order to ensure that it functions efficiently.
Got it.
Rinaz, is there more? Maybe Rinaz, perhaps someone else can share their opinion for now, at this moment, and if possible, Rinaz can play the next levels in the meantime.
I understand that Rinaz was playing... In this new build, there's only one level, but before that, he played that build on the program, for example. So I actually got it, but does that mean, Rinaz, did I understand the opinion correctly?
I just downloaded this thing from Google Play today.
Got it. Let me ask a few more inquiries and concerns about things I didn't like from a UI UX perspective, which is usually what Rinaz does from my perspective. I'll start the demonstration now. The functionality of your button is extremely poor, and the skip button is particularly ineffective because it does not operate in full screen mode, which raises the question of its usefulness. Any tap on the screen should indeed skip the intro, but your intro does not skip well. I realize that you can only skip it after 3 or 4 intros, because, well, really, like the shaders, I don't actually recollect what this thing is basically called. If you depress here, it essentially works, but if you depress here, the skip doesn't work. That's bad. Yeah, look, forcing people to watch a mandatory presentation or demonstration in 2024 is disrespectful. And the second point I wanted to make...
There's a skip button.
There's a skip button, but it doesn't work well.
Okay, we'll definitely fix that. We'll absolutely make a larger collider, and it will be clickable within approximately 3 centimeters of itself.
Ensure that any tap on the screen allows you to skip forward. This action will transition you to the next screen.
As you know, Evgeny, and about the skip reward placed button, we are going to get ads right away. From the start.
That makes sense. The second thing I noticed, which was quite intriguing and interesting, is the moment when we unlock various weapons in the game. For instance, you have a homing minigun, which sounds incredibly exciting and powerful. However, I didn't notice any actual homing feature when using it, which was a bit disappointing. But that's not the main point I want to discuss here. The question is, when all 3 buttons are essentially lit up as free, well, open, then in essence, in my mind, I always thought it was supposed to be green, not still yellow.
And replace this button with locks with a get button, for example, in green or something.
No, when you've actually opened everything, you've already watched all 3 ads. Привет.
I watched it.
Yeah, the button should turn green.
Recording is not automatic. Does it activate when the third ad is watched, right?
No, that too. So in my mind, or perhaps,
So you have to press the free button a fourth time to get it, right?
yeah, you have to press it a fourth time. Even that's beneficial. There's some music, some satisfaction and enjoyment and pleasure from getting it. Damn. Meanwhile, the button didn't change color at all. And I don't understand. I didn't actually record the video, the upgrade system. I can, let's say, for instance, I have approximately 100,000 money. I can click once or maybe even twice to upgrade this here. Then I still definitely have money, but I can't upgrade here. I need to close this menu and then upgrade it here in order to ensure everything is properly upgraded.
But that's not hers. You're in the gun menu if you close it, but there's also a red one. You can see it under the big menu.
I'm definitely talking about when it's green for me, when I can upgrade it. I upgraded it once, maybe twice, or maybe even 3 times, but I still have money for the third, fourth upgrade, but I can't upgrade it anymore. I have to switch to another menu, for instance, go in again, or maybe there need to be buttons.
Oh, by the way, there's a bit of an issue with the UI. This part right here, or maybe it's UX. There's a fine line between the two, maybe. When you press the buy button here, if you bought it, it exits this menu instead of staying in it, and click the green button many times until all the money runs out. Yeah. There's this moment, and I noticed it when I was playing. Well, I actually saw it and unfortunately did not record it. That is entirely my oversight.
Didn't record or did record, I still don't get it.
Didn't record it, but I should have.
And honestly, my subjective feeling about the game is that it's too easy. I mean, let's say, I usually have challenges with any arcade game. I have a bad reaction and everything and so on. But here, I went through 5-10 levels and I'm not even stressed. I mean, it's just, well, you don't have any problems getting through it.
The difficulty curve is too forgiving.
Yeah, and because of that, upgrading isn't necessary.
The difficulty curve is undoubtedly too skewed. Your difficulty curve is certainly too skewed. On that note, I'll probably finish and hand it over to Dmitry.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to talk about the game. I'll start a little bit from afar. I'll start with the fact that I played. First of all, both versions of the game, meaning the first and the second. So the main difference is that essentially currently you can rotate the little cannons. So that's the distinguishing feature of these two versions. Before, all the shooting was automatic, then it became manual. There are many other changes, but that's not the point. I played both versions. That's one. And secondly, let me see, I think the company, sorry, if I recall correctly, what's the name of the publisher?
Our account, the one we released it on, Red Pilot Studio.
Red Pilot Studio. Red Pilot Studio should definitely pay me some well-deserved royalties for that incredible billion views milestone, considering all the ads I did for them. Basically, the guys at the studio owe me a substantial amount of money for that billion views I got. To collect all the stars in the game, I literally went through the entire game and all the levels.
Valentin, remind me, how many levels do we have? Exactly 40 or 50? 40 levels, right? Almost all with 3 stars.
What I'd like to say first is about the shooting, and I must say I'm honestly going to sound like an elderly gentleman, but it used to be better.
With automatic shooting?
Yeah, the automatic shooting was definitely advantageous, even though you had to click instead of holding the button like now. It was much more convenient before. Now the shooting practically doesn't work when bots are running at you and you're trying to aim, even when you do aim at them, literally. Because the cone is actually very large and that's not the problem, but the gun doesn't shoot at them. They just pounce on you and start eating you. So the shootings used somehow worked much better. Now it causes more pain than any pleasant feeling from taking down the mobs running at you. Basically, it was better. I think you should really think about this. So the next point.
Can I just ask you a question? Just wondering, I have feedback, for example, from another person who says that now, with the shooting becoming automatic, there's an opportunity to use other functions such as jumping, nitro, doing flips, and all that stuff. What do you think about that?
The shooting isn't automatic. You simply have to hold the button to shoot.
Yeah, because of that, you don't actually use nitro because you're constantly holding it. You move forward and hold the shooting button.
If you initially intended for it to be that you aim and it shoots by itself, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. You have to hold down the button firmly in order for it to function properly.
And you haven't played the build I shared in the chat, have you?
No, I didn't get a chance. Is that fixed in there, right?
Well, there it shoots automatically.
Well, then perhaps most assuredly it will feel different compared to how it looked literally an hour and a half ago and how it looked before that in the previous build. The shooting was better before, but now I can't say.
Well, it just so happened that we have a content release. At that precise moment, it was indeed the appropriate time for us to do the comprehensive review, and I genuinely wanted. The review was thoroughly conducted on the new version, which already has extensively new features, new content, and it turned out that in that release, some functions came out, let's say, not perfectly right away. And we were trying to finish things up on the fly, and I shared the latest build in the chat, which is already more or less somewhat adequate. And here we have a discrepancy.
Minor ones. Even if the gun is automatic, it's not entirely clear why you need to aim it since the cone is very large, as Rinaz said when we were discussing earlier. So it's not quite clear what to aim at. Because the cone is really large and you don't need to aim up or down, you practically hit everything. So there's also perhaps maybe a question about this slider. So regarding the shooting, I think I'm done. So about upgrading the body. When you upgrade the body, it changes visually, it gets slightly bigger, and eventually you end up with almost a tank. In short, even with upgrades to other characteristics, controlling this tank is really difficult. So because the model is large, you might simply miss the spots in certain areas where you model the small shed. So in certain situations, sometimes you can't even squeeze through gaps because your car's box is too big. So if there was an option, for example, to upgrade the body but still change it at will, like keeping the original version, then perhaps probably it would be more convenient for some. For example, I found it much more enjoyable to play with the starting car than with this huge beast. Next, about the upgrades. To be honest, I didn't really feel any actual effect from them. I kind of invested the body. No, everyone upgraded it.
You feel nothing from it.
Tires and nitro. Well, the body increases XP. That's how it happens. You die a bit slower, basically, but you don't really feel anything from all the other characteristics. Weapons are separate. Weapons upgrade. Well, interesting.
Have you tried playing without upgrading anything? Tried playing without upgrading?
No, I haven't tried.
Well, give it a try. So indeed, in contrast, it will be very noticeable and clear what it gives. Well, so it somehow turned out that we have, let's say, this kind of vibe. In the game, it happened that when you get money, you upgrade something, but then everything upgrades evenly and you play in the game, and it appears as though, why did I even bother upgrading? I'm doing just fine without it after all. But only just until the moment you stop upgrading. So if you erase the game data and try not to upgrade, or only upgrade one thing, like just the body or just the machine gun, you'll feel the lack. At least that's what I think.
Well, even with maximum upgrades, getting 3 stars in some levels is indeed really challenging. So it might potentially be related to level design, maybe some issues such as bugs, the gameplay itself, but
it shouldn't be like that.
Doesn't help.
Guys,
I mean,
I'll just jump in for a second.
Yes.
Here you go. Can you just see? So no skip doesn't help. This is iOS on my device, but I'm replaying a couple of levels while you guys are talking. So I just stumbled upon this bug. It's a blocker. It's a significant blocker. Please note the 14 Pro model, the latest one.
What level was that on? Wait, please show it again, just right now. I'll quickly take a picture of it.
No, you don't understand.
Sasha is bragging that he has a 14 Pro.
No, guys, in this company, they pay me so little that I don't have a 16 Pro but a 14. I was drafting a document. I ended up with a 2-page document with my details. With these wild imaginations, I'll send it all to you later. And I uploaded that screenshot there. Yeah, Dima, sorry for interrupting.
The rewards in the new version, such as when they added the rewards that are given out after some time, like after approximately 8 hours or 7 hours, something like that. The rewards from these boxes don't accumulate. I'll explain that if, for example, you have 100 energy and you open a box and you get gold plus energy, that energy doesn't accumulate. So if you had 100 energy, you'll still have 100 energy. So those 30 energy points that I got as a gift just went to waste. So usually when there's an energy mechanic, if you're typically given more than the maximum limit, it still gets credited to you. They don't disappear. So just pay attention to that.
Yeah, I got it. You could make the main bar yellow and then add a green section to the bar for the extra that you've been given, beyond what you can normally have.
Well, just approximately a number. If the maximum is 100 and it's white, then if it's 130 or so, let it be green. I don't know. Well, somehow show that you have a bit more than the maximum you received.
Yeah, so if you waited approximately 8 hours and got 30 energy, you still need to give it somehow and not... Yeah, it turned out to be quite an annoying situation.
Furthermore, the energy doesn't regenerate on its own. I mean, the fuel, it doesn't regenerate for some reason. I don't know if it's a bug or a feature. Usually in games, there's an energy mechanic, and after a while, the energy regenerates on its own. In this case, I deliberately played for just some time, and I had some left. 5 energy, I left, came back after 4 hours, and nothing had literally regenerated. And it only regenerates either with gold, with soft, and with rewards and such. So I had to watch about 4 rewards to fill up the tank and play.
And at that specific moment, did you actually go for the energy resources in the particular level with the houses?
What houses?
Yeah, it really is absolutely worth playing the latest build. Again, there's this overlap with us having content released at the time of recording our first part of the review, briefly. The biome itself with houses, fallen skyscrapers, where you can drive along the walls of the skyscrapers. You haven't seen, you don't know it, you haven't played it. This is the third mechanic where you can get energy and it appears along with the energy itself. After some level, I think after the 10th or maybe the 8th, well, it's just meant to compensate this lack of energy regeneration over time. Yeah, I definitely agree. I've already noted it down as a to-do list.
About the level design, sometimes it feels like the level design just hates you. It downright despises you. At the start of some levels, if I'm not mistaken, definitely level 24 or 26, you immediately have this kind of serpentine, and that dark wave is already coming after you. So you go through one serpentine, then another, and by the third one, it's really high, like a mountain, and you're trying to climb it with nitro, but the wave is already catching up to you. I completed the level, but I still couldn't get 3 stars on it. Because the residents you're supposed to save are placed in such a strategic way that somehow it's not working out. It's not working out.
When you finally completed it, did you feel satisfaction or frustration?
Well, after watching 20, 25 ads, or maybe even 30, I don't know, to be honest, it's hard to describe my impressions. I guess you should be happy that good people got some money. Anyway, in some levels, they don't give you time to accelerate at the start. So you're immediately thrown into a serpentine, and you get a bit more frustrated because they really don't give you enough time at all to get ready for the serpentine, and it's quite frustrating indeed. To accelerate in order to somehow get a feel for the level a bit to better understand, because they give you a serpentine and 90% of the time you die there. And even though I practically knew the level by heart, I still managed to mess up there a bit off timing. I jumped and that's it, I was gone. I fall into a hole, the wave catches up with me and I die, and then I watch another ad. So in some levels, I think it's worth looking into so that they don't throw you into a serpentine right at the start.
Vadim, could you please tell us perhaps what's your overall impression of a bit more about the mechanics? So you've played through the whole game. Is the mechanics itself worth it? I noticed that this mechanic isn't copied one-to-one from something else, so at least there's something original in it, something borrowed, but overall in this form, there hasn't been anything quite like it before. So it's our little and unique invention. You see, not everything, but some of the known elements were used to create something new.
The game doesn't resemble its competitors. I agree that it was quite interesting to watch, but the overall feeling from the game is more pleasant than unpleasant. But sometimes it spoils impression, specifically level design. Sometimes it really truly feels like that pit on the map is specifically made so that you intentionally fall into it and watch an advertisement. It really feels like the level design was aimed at that. Well, the design was focused on that. Well, if the shooting has already been fixed, well, how fixed? It's been altered, like changed. It's not like it is now. The mechanics, of course, have definitely, and there is prospects for the future. Maybe there's still something that can be improved, I'm sure of it, but the mechanics have a future. Maybe that's the short version.
And the last important point you wanted to remind me of, you didn't forget.
I had to play because there was a task, so to speak, to get familiar with the game, get a feel for it, tell you about it, and so on. So there was definitely a purpose, but if I were just a regular player, I might have quit the game at some point. And not even because of the difficulty and the large amount of ads, but specifically because there are no long-term or short-term goals. So I see you have a storyline. I mean, I've seen it, but the storyline is so, how to say, it's quite simple. The storyline is simple. It's very simple. There are absolutely no mysteries or intriguing moments whatsoever that would keep the player engaged and what's going to happen next in the story. What is this? How interesting is this comic that you'd want to keep reading it? Unfortunately, first, the pages don't appear very often. Secondly, the story they tell is too straightforward. And that's why, in essence, it ultimately doesn't work as a compelling hook. And the goals, there aren't enough short-term ones because the levels change between each other, that you're just simply driving around. You have to destroy the helicopter and you have to rescue hostages. Yeah, and you rescue hostages. And I think there's also the possibility of driving on a skyscraper. Maybe that's some kind of variety, perhaps a bit more. It's like something's missing to keep you hooked.
I can add, I've come up with what should be there overall. Actually, it's absolutely obvious. You seem to have 4 to 5 levels. There should be some kind of boss that rides along with you and you shoot at him. And you should have a boss like Grindwall. So you need to set up the bosses so that the player goes through 5 levels. Let's say the first boss is easy to defeat. Killed him right away, the first 5 levels he went down, just killed the boss. For the second boss, 8% of players can defeat him second try. And then this chain will definitely work for you, that these bosses should be grind walls. And these grind walls are needed to level up, to make leveling up work, because the leveling up doesn't work. It's just pointless. I understand that when you say, for example, when they play, if you simply don't level up, you won't be able to progress. But the problem is you're just clicking randomly. So you just upgraded everything, you have enough money, upgraded everything, and you missed what it was. The point of this leveling up doesn't feel meaningful. That's the thing. And for that, you see, you actually need some bosses and you need to, measure it against them, in fact, just like we're doing now, essentially, as a matter of fact. Even now, we also actually had a zombie game and there are some bosses there too. I just sat down to see how much leveling up the player earns when they first approach this boss. I'm measuring this now and we'll set such parameters, a boss, so that he has to grind, level up, and do something else in the game world. And then this cycle will work for you. Then there will be a point in leveling up.
But what Dima was saying, for example, like level 24, isn't it sort of like a kind of boss that sort of makes you replay?
Know what I face now. 12 there.
There was a boy who raised his hand.
The boy raised his hand. Genya, please measure the progression funnel, and I'm sure that up to level 24, 70% of users likely
Didn't make it.
85, let's say 85.
Sasha is now with us. He didn't make it. 90.
Yeah? Okay. So accordingly, if you're using this hook, then you've placed the hook along the difficulty curve, which turned out to be straight.
So now what I I've already noted something about the difficulty curve.
So some challenge should appear in the game at the 4th or perhaps even the 5th level.
I wrote down difficulty curve and question mark, so it should become difficult earlier than now.
Well, you should encounter it and overcome it easily. First, you should encounter it and overcome it easily. But you should encounter it. If you don't literally encounter it, then there's no feeling. Dima, do you have anything else? I can still talk about something. I remembered one thing.
One nuance about the interface can be very easily fixed. It's something the testers should have informed you, but they probably didn't. My phone is actually in Russian, but it initially started feeding me English videos from the start. Well, damn, determining the device's language is just... It seems it must have been by the standard default, and somehow this default thing unfortunately didn't work. Sasha, for you. Was it originally in Russian or in English? In English, Sasha's phone too. I think it's actually set to Russian, but his app store is Polish. There's a Polish language. It should have picked up Polish, but it didn't.
Instead of beaver whore, I saw some English letters, so it's also in Latin script, but it didn't form beaver whore.
Oh, look, a helicopter appeared. What should I do?
Don't drink, and helicopters absolutely won't fly.
Once, a woman was telling me that her child had a fever, and she prayed so hard that the child's fever dropped to 0. At that moment, I thought, damn, she overprayed.
Great, I'll go light a candle for myself.
Oh, so the helicopter is almost a boss. It's cool.
Yeah, not almost. It is a boss.
So, Dima, are you done?
Too late, they showed me too.
Dima's all done.